Alright, what's going on, guys? When it comes to the state of Elden Ring as a game, the hunt for many of the secrets and questions we still have is going a bit slower. And as time goes on and the hype has been dying down quite a bit, it doesn't mean that the discoveries are any less cool. So today we're going to be diving into a lot of really cool gameplay tidbits that you probably didn't know, as well as some very intricate and thought-provoking lore theories that even I'm having some trouble wrapping my head around. But as we explore these today, if you're someone that's been keeping up with these Discoveries videos ever since I started, or if you've just recently found out about this series, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, as that'll let me know that you want to see more of these types of videos. But with that, I'm sure this first one is going to make a lot of people very happy. Patch 1.06 was probably one of the biggest changes to Elden Ring we've had since the game came out. It produced a slew of sweeping balancing changes across the board to a lot of different weapons, revamped the way invasions and co-op work, and fixed a ton of bugs and glitches that were really plaguing the game. But one of the more interesting changes that they made to a base function in the game was reworking the differences between medium and light rolls. The patch added the change where light rolls now carry you a farther distance than medium rolls. As you can see in the clip, the light roll takes me about 8 or 9 rolls to get from one side to the other, but while I have a medium roll, it's about 11 or 12 to go the same distance. Now, while that change is very interesting on its own, it had an unintentional but very useful side effect, and that is that if you fight Malenia with a light equip load, it is now much easier to dodge the Waterfowl dance, as comparable to how it was a week ago. Now, the Waterfowl dance was always possible to dodge, but unless you were using Bloodhound Step, you barely stood a chance. Now, if you do choose to use a medium equip load, it is still going to be the same. But for me personally, now when I go to fight Malenia, I'm always going to be using that light roll. And if you're someone that was struggling to dodge this, try doing what you see on screen now, because with 1.06, now you can stand a good chance. Elden Ring honestly does a good job of giving us a very vast repertoire of weapons and skills to make us feel very powerful as the player character. If a boss has a cool weapon, you can get that weapon. If a boss has a cool skill, typically you can use that skill later on. But there was one that I was notably disappointed did not exist in the game, and those are the golden weapons that Morgott and or Morgott use throughout their fight, conjuring them as a quick one move ability. Now, while yes, the weapons themselves exist in the game, technically the standard versions that can be wielded as a weapon, the player can't actually do this ability to summon them out of thin air as the forms of golden light, at least not anymore, because it was recently discovered within the game files by Rodan over on Twitter that at one point these items may have existed as an ability the player could get in the consumable slot, as the visual effects files for these weapons do still exist within the game's code. So based on these tweets, what this may have looked like are items that can be cycled through to use to summon these weapons for a singular attack or a combo. And I gotta say, it sounds like a big shame that these were cut, because I bet you could pull off some really cool combos with these, and they probably would have been a great tool for faith builds, because if we're being honest, faith builds could use all the help they could get. When it comes to FromSoftware, one thing they do better than almost any other company out there is attention to detail. And with Elden Ring, one thing they really sought to communicate and nail down, at least when it comes to certain concepts, is physics. And sometimes in Elden Ring, the key to making a hard fight a lot easier is thinking scientifically. The Abductor versions are one of the tougher enemies in the game. Honestly, very awkward to fight, and if you're fighting more than one at a time, it can be a nightmare. But the true creature that commands these vessels lies on the inside, beneath the iron casing. And if you try hitting them with a standard weapon, it's not going to do a whole lot of damage. However, did you know you can actually bypass the iron with lightning? Because the lightning will conduct through the iron to the creature beneath, and you can tell by the damage counter. Faster than your eye can even register it, you can see the damage jump with one strike from 322 to 422. This is as slow as I can make the clip, but you have to pause directly when the sword strikes in order to see the 322. But if you just want to think about it practically, these guys are really weak to lightning, but I'm not sure if there's other enemies out there that take this chip damage that goes so fast you can't even see it. But if one of y'all out there wants to investigate it, I would be more than happy to see the results of your findings. One part of the lore that I will be the first to admit I'm not an expert on are the dragons. Why do they live in a storm? Why are they so closely associated with stone? Why do they use lightning? And why do they have white hair? I really have no idea. But I do know enough to tell you about a really cool detail when it comes to their red lightning. Did you ever notice that all the lightning attacks used by the ancient dragons dragons result in the red lightning falling from the sky. The lightning is caught and then harnessed, and even weapons like the Bolt of Grandsax abide by this rule. However, golden lightning in many cases follows the opposite, but there are instances of both of these types of lightning behaving as standard lightning and striking down from the sky. However, in those cases you can see the grounding point of the lightning before it strikes. But there is one who completely breaks this rule, able to generate the red lightning of their own volition, and that is Placidusax. He is the only one of the ancient dragons who can create the red lightning out of his own body. Yes, some of the other ancient dragons can coat themselves in the red lightning, but it's the same appearance as the grounding points where the lightning strikes, so they are turning themselves into conductors, points of opposite charge so that the red lightning will strike to them. But the behavior of Placidusax seems to insinuate that he himself is the source of the red lightning. Even the Dragon King's Cragblade, which is gained from his remembrance, suggests that the weapon contains the primeval red lightning. And if Placidusax is the source of the red lightning, there would be no need for him to coat himself in the negative charge, which explains why he doesn't have it running along his skin. And honestly, that scientific part of the lore is just so cool to me. But let me know if you have anything to go along with that, because I do believe that a further explanation could support this idea. Up next, did you know about the horrifying secret of Caelid? That the weird deformed dogs and crows that we can find all around the Ionian swamp are actually of the same species. If we look closely at the morphology of these creatures, we can see that they appear to share the same skeletal structure, bipedal and with a similar hunched posture. The most prominent feature is the oversized head. Looking closely at the crows, we can also see that they're full of fur and teeth, which are obviously not components of a bird. The dogs also try to mimic the movements of the crows by smashing their faces in the ground, but almost forgetting that they don't have a beak anymore. But if the dogs and the crows are the same creature, why can we find some of the crows in the mountaintops of the giants? Well, we know at one point Caelid and the mountaintops of the giants were connected by a long bridge, and in similar fashion to most birds, perhaps the crows migrated north, escaping the sweltering heat of Caelid and the source of the scarlet rot. Perhaps it was the scarlet rot itself that caused them to become deformed so badly, but this is also a theory that deserves a lot more investigation. One of the biggest changes that came with update 1.06 to Elden Ring is the new invasion system that allows you to invade anywhere on the map. This has completely revitalized my love for the game, and I've been spending a lot of time doing invasions recently. But one of the questions a lot of people had was how exactly the pool of invadable areas was determined. Well, according to several different sources, it has now been confirmed that that pool of invadable areas is determined by exploration. You do not have to activate the Site of Grace in order to unlock that area for invasions. All you have to do is step one foot in the area in your own world, and then it is unlocked for remote invasions. So if you want to have the widest pool possible, make sure you stop by every dungeon. You don't have to clear it, and you don't have to activate the Site of Grace, because I will say dungeon invasions are a ton of fun. As I said earlier, FromSoftware are some of the best at hiding little tiny details that almost nobody is gonna notice, and this next one is a perfect example of that. Because did you know that beneath the Cleanrot Knight waistcloth, by removing the textures, you can actually see that it has the outline of an insect wing? And the implications of this are actually really interesting, because the Cleanrot Knights are under the service of Malenia and Miquella, both of who have a strong relation to insects. Malenia, unsurprisingly, is closely associated with butterflies, but Miquella's is a bit more tricky. We know that Miquella has the ability to craft for himself a cocoon and undergo a metamorphosis, but the type of cocoon that we find him in has a lot of its own clues to point us in the right direction. First of all, we can see a lot of silk or webbing attaching itself to the cocoon, very closely resembling that of a silk moth. And it's also worth noting that in the intro cutscene, we see Miquella being carried away by Mohg with little tiny wings growing out of his back. He's almost completely white and covered in silk, and his posture is almost identical to that of a silkworm larva inside the cocoon. So was Miquella originally supposed to evolve into some sort of giant moth? I think so. And it raises another question: is that actually him inside the cocoon in Mohgwyn Palace? Maybe for those answers we'll have to wait for the inevitable DLC. But to end end the video on a pretty lighthearted note. If you've been keeping up with this series for a long time, you know a rabbit hole that we have gone down continuously is that of the Elden Ring and mushroom connection. If that sounds insane to you, I made a whole video about it that is definitely worth a watch and I encourage you to check it out. But something that I keep getting in comments over and over again and in my messages is that is Ranni's design also based on mushrooms? And honestly, I can't lie, I think you guys might be onto something, because I came across a species known as the indigo milk cap, and while I could go into a deep speculation about this, I think I'm just gonna let the pictures speak for themselves. In all honesty, it's pretty spot on, and you know what, I think it might be. But that's gonna pretty much do it for the video today. I hope I showed you something that you didn't already know. If I did, be sure to leave a like on it, and I gotta say that the vast majority of you that have been watching every single Discoveries video I put out have been doing so without being subscribed to the channel. So if that's you, make sure you press the button down below. I can guarantee you're gonna like the rest of my videos too. But if you guys have a discovery that you think deserves a spot in these videos, be sure to join the channel Discord that'll have linked down below. And with all that, I'll catch you in the next one.